Why go outside at night in November? Well, it's Lunar Eclipse Month. Well, partially. Venus, Saturn, and Jupiter are rocking the sunsets. We technically have a meteor shower. Turkey Day is going to be awesome. And most importantly, we will be able to see an almost total lunar eclipse. Welcome to Observing with Webb, where a high school astronomy teacher tells you what you're looking at, why it's so cool, and what you should check out later this month at night. So I'm going to start off with the planets, then move on to the events, including that lunar eclipse and the meteor shower, and then take a quick look at some constellations. So let's get started with the planets. Well, we've got 3 wonderful planets the entire month long, and they are all after sunset, which makes them very easy to see. So let's take a look at Venus, Saturn, and Jupiter. Now, let's take a look at Venus first. It's over here. It's in the southwest. It's going to be low-ish on the horizon, about 10 degrees above the horizon. That's about a fist width at arm's length. Okay, and it's going to stay pretty much at that spot all month. Now, the way I like to get from Venus to Jupiter here is basically just take, go ahead, rock on, devil horns, whatever you want to call them, and spread them out. This, at arm's length, is about 15 degrees. Now, if you start at Venus and then go up 1, 2, 3, you should get up to Jupiter. And Jupiter is going to be the brightest thing out there. It's more toward the south. And then about another third of the way back, so one of these back, is Saturn. It'll be brighter, but not as bright as Jupiter. Okay? All right, so that's in the beginning of the month. That's what you're seeing. But what we find as we go through the month, let's see what happens. Oh, well, the moon flies by. We'll talk about that later. You notice that Jupiter and Saturn get closer and closer to Venus, right? Whoops. And by November 30th, they're almost evenly spaced, which is just really, really cool. Why is this cool with a telescope? Well, with Jupiter, of course, you can see the cloud bands on Jupiter. Okay, you can see the Galilean moons, and maybe, I wonder if this is showing it right now, maybe you can even catch a shadow of one of the moons on Jupiter. Maybe. You'll have to look those up if you want to time them right. Of course, Saturn, even in binoculars, looks really cool because you see the rings. Something like this is probably the basic you'll be able to see, but if you have a good set, you'll see something more like that, where you'll definitely be able to make out the rings. So obviously just super duper cool. And lastly, with Venus, I want to center on Venus since it's so easy to find in a telescope too. I'm going to go back to November 1st, and I'm going to zoom in on Venus because I want to see what changes over the month. So right now it's at a half phase, and then as we move forward in the month, you notice it gets closer to us, and let me go back to November 30th. It actually gets into that crescent phase. That's because it's going around the sun, and actually it's faster than us in the orbit, so it kind of catches up to us a little bit. And so the perspective changes. It gets closer to the sun from our perspective, and you can see this crescent. Okay? So that's super cool. So there you go. You've got Venus and Saturn and Jupiter all right after sunset. And I'm sorry, but there's no more after they set, no more planets. Venus sets around 8:30, and let's see, Saturn and Jupiter. In the beginning of the month, Saturn sets at midnight with Jupiter at 1 a.m., and then at the end of the month, Jupiter and Saturn set at about 10 p.m., 11:30 p.m., respectively. There you have it. Go check out Venus, Saturn, and Jupiter. So what's going on out there? Well, if we just look at the moon, let's see, I'm actually recording this on the 5th. So if we're just looking at the moon, then we are seeing the morning crescents on, well, before. The new moon is yesterday on the 4th. And then after this, we're going to get some evening crescents. Okay, they're going to be in the west after sunset this following week. The first quarter moon is on the 11th, and that's when the right half is lit up, visible until about midnight. After that, you've got the evening gibbous moons until it turns into a full moon on the 19th. We'll talk about that real soon. And then after that, the waning gibbous until it becomes a last quarter moon on the 27th. And that's when the left half is lit up and it's visible until midnight. So as far as things that are going on each day, I don't know if you got a good picture or got to see this, but I was able to see the moon and Mercury right near each other in the morning going to school. One of my favorite things to do is to, especially right now, right before daylight savings time ends, I bring my camera and I try to get up early. It doesn't always work. And I head out to the school, and it's super early, so it's dark. It's before the sun is even close to dawn. So I like to get good pictures. Now this one, it was going to be great, and then I drove and fog everywhere. But luckily I was able to get a good picture. The next real thing that we've got going on is daylight savings time ending on the 7th, which means the morning, it's going to get darker at night earlier, and it's going to be lighter in the morning. Now let's go back to the 7th though, and let's look to the let's look at sunset, and let's look to the west, which is where that sun is setting. What are we going to find? Well, we have a week of get over here, there you go, southwest. Okay, we have a week of some really cool stuff going on. Okay, let me get this just a little bit darker. There we go, about 6:30 p.m. Okay, and let me turn the daylight saving time off. So that's really about 4:30 p.m. on the 7th. Here's what we're looking at. Look at this lineup. You've got the moon over here next to Venus. Then you've got Saturn and Jupiter kind of in the party as well. So here's what we got. The moon's kind of a beautiful crescent right there next to Venus on the 7th. Okay, gorgeous just in and of itself. Then we move to the 8th, and the moon, since it moves 13 degrees every day, it's going to move closer to Saturn. But it's actually, it moves closer. It's in between Saturn and Venus, but closer to Venus. On the 9th, you've got the moon right in between, maybe even closer to Saturn. Okay. Make that a little bit darker for us. There we go. And then the moon is below Saturn, kind of close to Jupiter on the 10th, and then right below Jupiter on the 11th. So a nice little arc of a lineup on November 12th. So again, from the 7th to the 12th, you've got a great passage of the moon through these planets. 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. And there we go. So the next thing up is the 17th. We have the Leonid meteor shower. Now, here's the thing. Leonid meteor shower is kind of a weak shower, typically. And the meteor shower usually produces about 10 to 15 per hour. Not a lot, but more than background noise. And it can have some really great years, but this will not be one of those great years. Why? You're looking at it right here. It's basically a full moon. It's actually 2 days shy of being full, but yeah. So there's going to be far too much light pollution to see all the little itty bitty ones. However, you will be able to see some, so get out there, take a look. And if you recall, it's the Leonid meteor shower. So the meteors will appear to be coming from the constellation of Leo. Up there it is, rising up at 1 a.m. So the earlier in the morning, the better. But, you know, for this one, just go out whenever you can and stay out for 20 minutes. See if you see something. If not, you're looking at the moon and the stars, which isn't so bad. All right. Now, 2 days later, I said that moon was almost full, right? So here's what we got to do. We got to get up early in the morning on the 19th, okay? Early in the morning on the 19th, and it looks like the simulation is a little bit off, but what we've got to do is we got to find the moon, okay? And we find the moon in the sky, and I have labeled here the Earth shadow as well, because the sun's on the opposite side of the Earth, so the Earth casts a shadow into space, or blocks light in a cone into space. So what's happening on the morning of the 19th? This one snuck up on me. What's going to happen is 97% of the moon's surface will be in the shadow of the Earth. Now that means that 3% will be visible. Okay, or sorry, 3% will be lit up by the sun. So it's just a very sliver, but it means we don't get that totality, that real dark blood red moon quite as much as we normally do with a total eclipse. Okay, let's see. North America will pretty much be able to see all of it. The rest of the world, only maybe portions of it. You can look up a map for that. Pretty easy to see. But here's the game plan, all right? So we are going to be going... Oh, there we go. Let's see. 2:18 is... I don't think the simulation's all that great. But 2:18 is when the partial part starts. That is when the moon starts going into this dark inner portion of the shadow. The shadow has... It's actually a cone, but it's got two parts. The dark inner part called the umbra, and the dark, or the lighter part outside, which is the penumbra. Technically, it's in the penumbra here, but you're not really going to see anything. And unfortunately, I think Starry Night does a disservice to show it shading right here, because it really doesn't shade yet. You're going to start seeing a nice little chomping away of the moon right here. Okay, so what's going to happen is the Earth shadow is going to appear to nibble on the moon from the top down, but a little bit off center to the right. And so this is going to take about 1 hour and 45 minutes to reach maximum. So watch what's going on. Okay, so this line here, this dark line here, this is where that shadow line is going to be. Okay? And so we keep going until at 4:04. Look, oh, it's so close to going totally in. Not quite. 4:04, that's when we get maximum eclipse for this eclipse. It's just a little bit off. And, you know, it's going to be dark. It's going to be probably a dark orange or red. This little sliver is going to be lit up, which will probably kind of glare out the rest of the moon in a sense. Our eyes will be able to see it, but your camera probably not. Okay, but anyway, 4:04 a.m. is when that happens, and then it starts exiting the shadow. Okay, and it keeps going until 5:47, which is when the moon exits the umbra, the dark inner portion. Don't worry about the penumbral part. You can't see it with your naked eye, you know. And if you're doing stuff where you're actually detecting the penumbra with, I don't know, a camera or something, you know what you're talking about. So don't worry about that. So for us normies, we're looking at this. We're looking at 2:18. The eclipse begins. 4:04, it's at maximum, and 5:47 a.m. it is done. One thing to note is that at the end, okay, when it's done, at least for us, you know, nearby Pennsylvania, it's going to be low on the western horizon. Okay, in fact, only about 12 degrees above the horizon. This is a good chance to get a good foreground object. In fact, if we go back to when the eclipse started, okay, at 2:18, the moon is 50 degrees above the horizon. So it's actually pretty high up there. It's about halfway up the sky, but it will track down to about 10 degrees above the horizon at 5:47. Okay. Now, a couple cool things to keep in mind when you're watching this. Okay, the Pleiades are up and to the right. This is going to be pretty neat to see. Also, we've got Taurus up and to the left, and of course, one of our favorites, Orion, a little bit more to the left of that. So what you're going to notice, though, if you actually are awake and watching this, is that let's say you are looking out right as it starts, or right before it starts. It's going to be a full moon, and so something like the Pleiades will be really tough to see because of the light pollution of the moon, but you should be able to see it. But what will happen is you, as the moon gets darker, more of these stars are going to be able to pop out. In fact, this is a really good test to see how much that light pollution changes. Count how many stars you can see when it's a full moon here in the Pleiades, and then count how many you can see when it's completely dark, or almost completely dark. Go out there and check that out if you can. If nothing else, at least get up early to see the end of it. So anyway, good luck. I hope you have very clear skies for that. Now, on the 25th, that is Thanksgiving. Let me give you a quick tour of the Thanksgiving sky. And let's see, let's go back a little bit after dinner. I don't know, maybe you eat dinner at a different time. Sometimes my family eats dinner at like 4 o'clock on Thanksgiving. But here we go. If you get out there after Thanksgiving dinner, you get out there and you can see Venus, Saturn, and Jupiter. Like I said before, great telescope objects. So if you can see, if you've got a good view of them, you've got a telescope. Thanksgiving's a great time to show your family and just sort of, just enjoy it. It's really actually quite wonderful. Now, Venus will set at about 7 p.m., okay? So you do have to get out there before 7, okay? But then also, if we look over here, we'll have a pretty clear sky. Nothing really in terms of the moon drowning anything out until, there we go, about 9 o'clock, the waning gibbous moon is going to pop up. But that's actually going to look pretty cool too. All right. So after 9 o'clock, you'll see the moon kind of rising. And if you get it right as it's on the horizon, it's going to be like a dark orange, kind of like the eclipse. And it's just, I don't know, just a great one to look at. Also, we got all the corn cut down, so it should be easy to find this if you're out here in Amish country. All right, so that is it for the events. Make sure you are getting out on the morning of the 19th for that eclipse and just getting out some time to check out those planets. All right, let's move on to some constellations.
Are there patterns in our skies? Are patterns only in our eyes?
Alrighty, so what are you looking at if you're looking outside? Well, I like to think, let's say, first of all, go to skymaps.com. They do a great job of this every month. But if you look basically straight up, okay, see that red mark? That's the zenith. That's the point straight above you. But almost straight up, you will see this great big square known as the Great Square of Pegasus. And off to the side of that right here is Andromeda, okay? These are, they're just really good to look at in the sky. The neat part about Andromeda is it's got 3 sets of stars that get further and further out and further away from each other, and they make this sort of horn or cornucopia shape. And then I like to take the middle pair and move just the same amount into that curve, and that's where you'll find the Andromeda Galaxy. You might see it as a fuzz with your naked eye, but if you have a telescope or binoculars, you can see a galaxy right there. Now, also, it kind of empties out, if you will, into Perseus here, and Perseus empties out toward the Pleiades down here. But we're going to get to that next. Let's say you head out before bed, I don't know, let's say 9:20. Of course, you still have Pegasus and Andromeda up there, but they've moved over a bit. And you also have Triangulum and Aries right there, kind of below Perseus and Andromeda. Okay. But let's say you're going out in the morning. Oh, actually, if you get out there a little bit later, you might catch Orion rising up with Taurus over here and the Pleiades above it. I'll talk a little bit more about that next month. But let's say you are out there before work, like I like to do sometimes. You are looking at, of course, Orion. You've got the belt of Orion. You've got red Betelgeuse up here. You've got blue Rigel down here. You can follow the belt, follow it to the right, and find Taurus the bull. Or you can follow it to the left and find the brightest star in the sky, Sirius, which is part of Canis Major right here. You can also kind of connect the two bright ones, Rigel and Betelgeuse, and go up, and you can find Gemini, the twins up here. I challenge you. I don't like the way the program does this. I like the stick figure connection of the dots here because it kind of shows them as actual stick figure twins. But I'll let you check that out yourself. Also, you might want to take a little note of Leo the Lion up here, a little bit more toward the east, but it's up there with the backward question mark and the right triangle to the left. Just another good one to find. So anyway, that is it for the month. Don't forget that lunar eclipse and those planets. Don't forget this is a podcast found on my Podbean page, Stitcher, iTunes. You can also find my socials at Mr. Webb PV and at PV Planetarium. So anyway, that's really it for the month. So I'd like to wish you all a very clear, dark sky for the month of November.